Hello everyone and welcome to my tutorial on how to do data visualizations using the matplotlib library. So for today, I'm going to use the Titanic dataset. For those who are not familiar with the Titanic dataset, it is a collection of everyone that was on the Titanic when it sank and the different attributes that they had. So looking here, you can see a description of the dataset and you get an idea that this is the survival, which indicates whether the person survived or didn't, the ticket class that they were on, their gender, age, whether they were traveling with any siblings, spouses, or children or parents, and so on and so forth. To get a full understanding of the data set, you can go to Kaggle.com. So for those quick sign up, for those who are not familiar with Kaggle, Kaggle is a online competition where data scientists are provided open source data sets and they try to build as accurate models as possible using different machine learning algorithms and then see who has the highest ranking model. Um, so for me, I've already downloaded this data set into my local machine here under train.csv. And so for our specific project, it's actually broken down into three relatively simple steps. The first is you download the libraries that you believe that you're going to need. You load the data set into your notebook or variable, and you inspect it and decide any data cleaning that needs to be done, if any. And finally, you plot and decide what kind of plots to use, whether histogram or box plot or bar graph, and what kind of title to give it, and so on and so forth. So let's get started. The first thing you want to do is download the two, what I would call cornerstone libraries of any data science related task, pandas and numpy. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that you're a little bit familiar with these two libraries, but I will try to explain every now and then any functionality that I have used and where do they come from. So the new one in this case you may be familiar with is matplotlib. And here I import it as PLT. It's a common phrase that we use to designate matplotlib. And I use this matplotlib, that inline line written right here. And this line essentially just makes sure that your visualizations are displayed in your notebook. So we're going to go ahead and import our CSV file. And for that one, we use the pd.readcsv. In this case, our data set is called train.csv, so I'm train.csv. And voila. And so first thing we want to do is, take a look at this data set for itself and see, how many rows, how many columns. So there is a popular method for doing that. That's part of the NumPy library. So one thing that I commonly use are cheat sheets. Cheat sheets are quick ways of trying to remember, how do I do this specific functionality with this library? Because it's hard to remember all of them. So in this case, the one that I'm thinking of is shape. Shape tells you, well, let's see what it tells you. Let's just write it down. And okay, so it tells us that there are 891 rows and 12 columns. Pretty good. It gives us an idea of our data set, but not a complete data set. There is a better method of getting an idea, if you will, of the dimensions and the full context of your data set, and it's a method called info. So let's try it out. We do df.info. Okay, so right here we can see it tells us as well we have 891 rows, similar as here, and 12 columns, but it gives us a little bit more information. It tells us what the names of our columns are. You can see passenger ID, survived, and it tells us what kind of data types that they were. So N64 is integer, object can be several things. Float is a number that has a decimal value, another object. Yeah, so we get an idea of our data set, but now look at it closely and you can see that it tells us the number of rows for every column, but for some of them, it doesn't match up to 891. You see it's 714 here, and 204 and 889. Why is that? Well, that is because there are null values in these specific columns. And so that's what I meant by inspect and clean if need be. And looks like here we're going to need to clean and decide what to do with these null values. So another way to get a quick look at our data set, if you're not familiar with it, is the df.head. df.head is a comment. Okay, so this is another cheat sheet. This one specifically for pandas. I highly recommend cheat sheets if you don't use them already. And dot ahead, as you can see, selects the first n rows. N usually is 5 if you don't indicate anything. So in this case, let's say we want the first 10 rows. And okay, so we can look at the first 10 rows of this data set. We can see passenger ID, survive, all numbers adds up. Here we see name, and which was written as object here, and we see, oh, well, object in this case means 3. We see sex in gender. We see age in so age has this value called NA and non. Non is designating a null value, and so this is one of several that age has that means it has 714 observations instead of 891. Cabin, we see it as the same thing, as in fact more non-values than age itself. So in the next step, we need to decide what to do with these null values. And since these are two different types of columns, we take two different approach. Age is a numerical column, and cabin is a categorical column. We take two different approach. So we're going to look at age first and decide what to do with age. The common way of dealing with null values from a numerical standpoint is to pick the median or mean of the numerical value and assigning it to these null values, especially if it's not that many. So in this case, we're looking at maybe 180 null values out of 891. So how do we do this? How do we find out? Well, we have this method called describe. And so, well, what is describe? Describe is, funny enough, I believe, described in the Panda cheat sheet that I'm seeing here. And it says a basic descriptive statistics for each column. Well, in this case, we have a specific column in mind we're going to look at, age. And let's see what are the descriptive statistics. Okay, so it says that there are 714 rows, and the mean is 29, and these descriptions tell us that 20 values or 25% of the values are between 0 and 20, 50 are between 0 and 28, and so on and so forth. So let's decide what are we going to do with these null values. Well, we're going to assign our NAs the, in this case, mean. So how do we do that? Well, let's look at our pandas cheat sheet again and see if it has anything to say about that. Oh, well, it has this thing called fill NA. Fill NA, what does it say? Replace all NA null values with value. Okay, so if we can get the mean itself, we can replace our age with, or null values at age with this specific value. How do we do that? Well, we do df age, and looking at our cheat sheet, it says fill NA. So fill NA, and in the value, let's go with 29.6999. Let's go with 70. Does it run? It does. But we forgot to assign it back to our df age column. Otherwise, here it's just displaying it. So what do we do? Well, we do df, age, and make it equal to this. Okay, and if you want to take a look back and see what happened to our observations, oh, well, now all of our age columns have age. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for now. Stay back for the next video where we will continue to see how do we deal with categorical null values. I am George, your teaching assistant, and I thank you for your time.